Monster design is one of the most immediate appeals of fiction and fantasy. It's a metaphor that works with no setup. Zombies are humanity void of individuality. The Grim Reaper is death culling humanity's numbers. And this little guy here is the reason keys go missing. Yes, pocket monsters are monsters. They just happen to fit in your pocket. I've admired their designs in the past, links description, but today I'd like to go over an oft-overlooked component of Pokemon design, their names. A Pokemon's name carries a lot of responsibilities. It has to walk the line between making and explaining the overall joke or metaphor. It has to read both literally and phonetically, and it has to be memorable and distinct enough to distinguish from the other 900 dudes. Some do it better than others. Take Ekans, which is just snake backwards. It's cute, but if you really just unwind that, Game Freak designed a snake and called it Snake. I don't want to be harsh or anything, but it's like plagiarizing God. It'd be more acceptable if snakes were one of those weirder than fiction animals, but it's just not. I'm tempted to go on about how Arbok could be a better use of fantasy if its fake face were its real one, or if Ekans was literally a backward snake with a rattle for a head. However, we're here to talk about why the name is dumb, not the art. So let's break down why the naming archetype is lame. Rotom does a bit better since it's a poltergeist possessing an object, there's stuff to work with, but the name really doesn't reflect that. Rotom is more than just a motor, so it's not a particularly descriptive moniker. You could maybe make the point that he is a complement to an electric device, but I feel like that's a stretch. I'd argue that Lucario is the best of the worst in this regard since it's more original. It isn't a real-world or mythical animal, but it would be cool if the name actually reflected that. Again, he's more than just an oracle, so it'd be cool if the name was too. That's not to say this naming archetype couldn't work out with the right design. I like the idea, I just don't think that it has worked out perfectly so far. Girafarig does pretty well actually, since it's a sort of cat-dog situation going on, which would explain the palindrome. I think the unused version of the design gets the concept across a bit better though. With all that said, don't let anybody tell you that Ekans is the worst named Pokemon in the game. Not when we got guys like Seel walking around with nothing going for it. Like Ekans, this guy is a bit of a half-baked idea to begin with, so it's a bit unfair to pick on it for having a lame name, but even some of the more fleshed out guys have problems. The idea behind Beedrill is that it's a bug with a sharp poisonous stinger, which is enough, but the name has nothing going for it. Yes, getting stung hurts, so it's cute to interpret that pain as a power drill, but the name is not clever at all. Toucannon ain't great, but it's not Birdgun. I'd argue that the bare minimum required for a Pokemon name to be considered clever is a portmanteau. If you don't know what that means, just think of a spork. It's a fusion between a spoon and a fork, and the name works the same way as the product. Typhlosion is as destructive as a typhoon combined with an explosion. Charizard is a lizard that burns like charcoal, and Incineroar incinerates and roars. Like I said, it's the bare minimum. It takes two ideas that ideally come together to make a clever harmony. What would best be avoided, however, is a single entendre, where a name as a whole is clever enough to be interpreted as one thing, but not another. For example, take Exeggcutor, a egg-headed executor, though I think it's supposed to be executioner. Let's chalk that up to the game being Japanese. We gotta let some stuff go. Since onomatopoeia doesn't translate, we get to pretend Pikachu's name isn't Boomsqueak. While yes, I feel like on paper the name Executor is better than something like Incineroar, which just throws two words together to make a new one, I think it hurts the overall package when it comes to actually saying the word out loud. If you don't go out of your way to pronounce the pun, then you just say a regular word. Collossal is a colossal pile of coal, but you wouldn't get that without the text. It's more clever than a portmanteau, but it's not as good. However, a single entendre pun is one step closer to the ideal double entendre. Here, a name is a portmanteau of two relevant words put together, but instead of just making gibberish, it has meaning. Who's that Pokemon? It's Palossand. He's a palace made of sand, but he's also a pile o' sand. Two meanings, it's a pun, it's a portmanteau, and it's literally what it is while remaining phonetically unique. This dude is the champ of naming conventions in my eyes, with only a few runners-up, but he's still usurpable. Keep your eyes peeled for the elusive triple entendre portmanteau, a combination of two phonetically similar relevant words, or onomatopoeias, that come together to make a corruption of a real word or phrase that can be interpreted in two additional ways. It's a lot of prerequisites, but when it eventually happens, it'll be a feat of monster design. TLDR, Pokemon names can do better than Mr. Fucking Mime. Backwards names are a good way to get a distinct word, but it's not that good at describing something unless the monster is literally some sort of backwards chimera creature. Portmanteaus are nice if the creature is easy to sum up into words that share some phonetics, just so long as the words that come together read when spoken aloud. The ultimate goal is to reach a double meaning by combining two words to make a third. What's in a name? I guess not too much. A Roselia by any other name is just as bound sweet. But with fiction, there's no shame in a little extra wordplay.